What makes music too extreme?
Me personally, I don't think anything does. But to others, this could be the blast beats, the guttural sound noises, or the album covers that make CD record stores not really want to sell the album because of how disturbing the imagery is. Today we're going to be going into the heaviest genres out there. We're going to be talking about Goregrind and brutal slam, and we're also going to go into the history of how gore ended up being on some album covers. And then in the late 1980s, a band called Reek of Putrefaction started basing their lyrical content around autopsies, diseases, and stuff of the sort. Now this was a complete change from the political lyrical content from this type of genre. This band would pioneer the pitch-shifted guttural noises that you hear in most really heavy slam metal songs. Now, gore grind evolved from the grindcore genre, while brutal slam evolved from the brutal death. One of the early pioneers of this genre came from Suffocation, and they introduced these slam sections of the music, which is basically where the ultra heavy low guitars and drums get into this groovy blast beat type of era. The difference between the two was that gore grind focused more on heavy blast beats and fast-paced music, while brutal slam focused on more heavy, brutal sounding, groovy beats. So, gore usually appeared on album covers, mostly because of shock value, a statement piece, or just purely aesthetics. Now, a big problem with the gore on the album covers, a bunch of people will diss on the album covers because they have gore, when the albums they like themselves also contain gore in it. A big example of this is the album Death Crush by Mayhem. Most people don't know that the hands in the album cover are actually real decapitated hands. Now, it's not really no secret that horror films and metal kind of have this love relationship going on. I will talk more about the horror movies aspect in a later video that me and my girlfriend will create together, but basically, these disturbing album covers usually come from the love for very extreme graphic movies, especially underground shock movies. Now, this heavily graphic imagery was usually just used as a big middle finger to, the person. Basically, just saying that if one thing's off limits, all of it's off limits. But, the greatly controversial part is the topic on actual real-life dead people on these album covers. Now, the most controversial part on this topic is the talk about real remains and mutilated corpses in album covers. Now, usually they get these images from books, like the image from the Death Crush album. They usually get it from medical textbooks, police crime scenes, stuff like that. Now, using these photos from medical textbooks aren't really that big of a deal. I mean, they are free use and used for educational purposes. The problem is when you start using real murder victims and self-deletion victims on these album covers. One of these albums come from Mayhem again with their bootleg album of Dawn of the Black Hearts, which I obviously cannot show that album cover because it's pretty brutal. I mean, if you don't like seeing any of that content, I highly advise you not to look it up. But yeah. Now, discussion of whether it's okay or not to use real human gore on album covers just depends on the preference of the person. Now, that was a very brief history on the genres of brutal slam and gore grind and the controversy of gore on album covers. Hey guys, Tyler here. Sorry for the really short video. I just had to get this one really pumped through YouTube so I could start focusing on our bigger project that I make with my girlfriend. I talked about it in the video, but we're going to be discussing different types of horror movie genres. Now, if you could show some of my other socials some love, I would greatly appreciate it. I would also greatly appreciate if you hit that like and subscribe button. But, till I see you again, have a great day.